Well, hello, and welcome to 164 NASCAR Custom Diecast. I want to show you what I'm working on today, which is building a second one of these Ricky Stenhouse 2012 Ranchers Reserve Tender Beef. Looks like he's got Cargill on here too. Zest and Best Buy. Yeah. So I built this one over the weekend, and I'm gonna kind of go over that and build another one. So a couple things about this particular car, and a lot of the 2012, 2011 cars. You can see ever so slightly there's a curve here across here. So what I like to do, take this roof decal, and it lines up pretty good, but these corners stick out because this is a rectangle and the roof is curved. So what I do is I take it like so, and I will trim off these corners so it gets a little bit of a rounded effect on the top. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just a little bit of the excess will make that curve and turn out much better as I kind of tuck it behind the windshield. You can see what I did here. I was also kind of pre-painted some areas, and this is just some lessons learned of doing this one and how the certain areas where the black and the red meet up, I'll pre-paint it. So I pre-painted a little bit back here to kind of get down in this area here, so there's no red that exposes once I put the decal on the top. And same thing up here, I put a little black across here. If there happens to be any black that sits there, that will be there, or you won't be able to see it. I also did this little area on the front. So the picture has this lower valence here, all red, and then this is black. So when you put this piece on here, it'll go like right along there. Doing that one, and maybe you saw my Best Buy video, this one's a pain in the butt to put on. So I went ahead and I pre-painted it here ever so slightly to if there happens to be a little gap or whatever, you'll see black and you won't see the red. Of course, I painted the side skirts. I also painted around this rear wheel well along the bottom here and up here, because when you're putting on these side decals, they don't always cover everything. So you might get a little peek through, and it's much easier to do it here now than it is to do it afterwards when it might not look so well. One other thing I'll show you, again this is lessons learned on this, is this piece right here on the back, this little red tail light area. I don't like it. I don't like it because when you put on, I'll show you the one I did. When you put this on, these rear lights, they kind of wrap around already, and they wrap around. They don't line up with what's there. So you can see what I did was I painted it, and I'll do that right now. Also want to show you after I paint this, and I just kind of, paint over the red with my black. I don't normally do this at all, but in this case it just doesn't, the decal just doesn't line up, and it's a little bit easier to paint the decal in that area than it is to just cut it out. So I just go ahead and paint it. Don't want to get too much paint on it because it is paper, but I want to cover that up. Just like so. Alright, so let's start getting some decals in the water here. I'm going to put this piece on. Again, it's a very difficult piece to do. This is the hood decal. Get that in the water. I just painted these, so let's let those dry. Okay, so this trunk piece. One of the things that I like to do to set off the decal is to put in the little touch of aluminum for the hood pins and trunk pins. So there's a trunk pin, and then 4 hood pins across there. Well, sometimes the decals have the hood pins already on them. In this case, they don't line up. So you do a little dry fit here, and it's too big. So I need to trim it down, and it's easier for me to trim and to take off those hood pins. So I'm going to do that right now. And also there's a little curve to it. So I'm going to take out the hood pins and put in a little curve as it curves around ever so slightly for the rear spoiler. Take that out. You can see now lines up much better. It's not perfect, but it does line up better. So we'll get that now in the water. I like to put that piece on first before I put the side piece on, because that wraps up down, and then it might overlap a little bit, this rear piece. I want that piece down first, and then we'll put this on. Okay. One other thing I'll show you. Sometimes when I'm painting, I get paint on areas that I don't want to. So get some paint thinner. I'll show you how I clean this up. I'll cut off a little piece of clean paper towel. Like so. And we'll get rid of this area that's not straight. I'm going to do it twice, so I'm going to have 2 little pieces. And that's all you need, just 2 little tiny pieces, okay? So, first area that I got paint on was when I was painting this black across here. I got some paint right on here, just up here. That's probably going to be covered, no big deal. But I don't want that paint there. A little bit of black there. I'm good over here, but just a little bit right there. So the best way that I've learned to do that, I take my tweezers, I take this little piece of paper towel, and I fold it a few times. Try to get it small. Okay, this is not rocket science, but this is how I do it. I don't want too much paint thinner in this sopped up paper towel. But you just kind of then wipe it on ever so carefully. I'll take off some of that too. A little too much. And you just wipe gently. You don't wipe too hard. And the paint pen paint, it doesn't adhere to the body as well as the actual sprayed. And of course I put a coat or two of the clear sealer. And that's all I want to do right there. And I want to wipe that off ever so carefully, because I don't want to mar the surface of that paint too much. There you go. It's off. Now it's not going to be the glossy finish, but once I put a coat of the sealer on it, that'll gloss right back up again, and it'll look like I never touched it. Okay. Now that's on a red car, darker car. It's a little bit easier to do that and mask it. Here's a white car, and I was painting in here for the fuel door, and I got some silver all around. It was just a mess. So I want to clean that up. I'm not going to use that same little piece. I'm going to use a different little piece, because for white, again, if I had done this one first and then did the red one, I probably would use the same piece. But here I'm going to use a different piece, because I do not want any black or any other color to get on this white car. So just a little bit of the paint thinner on there. The paper towel sucks it up pretty quickly. You could use a Q-tip. I've used Q-tips before, but taking this off, it's off of a paper towel, just a little small piece. It's you just don't waste a Q-tip on it. So I'm just going to kind of wipe. And I got to get careful when I get this off. I can see a little bit of the paint thinners inside where the fuel door is. And I'll blow on it a little bit, and it'll dissipate. But yeah, you can see cleaned up pretty well, and I didn't mar the white, and yeah, looks pretty good. So what I'll do, take, since there's some in there, I'm going to just dip my paper towel in there and pick up some of that. Okay. Like I never did it. Okay? So yeah, so that's kind of how I do a little cleanup with using the paint thinner and the little tweezers and the paper towel, little corners of the paper towel. Just something that works pretty well for me, and again doesn't leave a mark, and cleanup's pretty quick and easy. You want to be very careful, obviously, around the paint thinner and paint, because you can really do a lot of damage when you do that. Okay, one other piece I want to show you guys is when you're putting on these large pieces, you can see how I've cut it out. I don't like to leave any of the decal paper there where there's no actual decal. You have to be real careful with white decals and little white edges so you don't. So you can see how I trim super close to that. Trim around here, trim here. On this piece here, I decided to leave this area here because cutting in here was kind of it's difficult because it's pretty close to one another here, whereas here I had more space. So I'm going to leave that there. That's pretty easy to do. Whereas there was just a gap here, and so I went ahead and cut that out. I also trim around these pieces here ever so carefully, because sometimes these have to be folded into the front wheel well, so you have to be real careful there. And of course I may need to fold this as well into that front wheel well, so I'm ready there. And I cut a little slit. I cut this back here, and I cut a little slit right here, so that big piece, I think I did. Well, maybe I didn't. I did it on the other one. But what I like to do is just cut a little piece there so that will curve in better, If it's one big piece, it's harder to curve and get it to lay flat. I also like to cut on this side in case I have to fold this side. So I just cut like a little slit there. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Because these tend to be a little long, and again, you have to curve them back in, tuck them back in underneath there. The other thing I do is when I line this up, you can see how it's big. But when I line this up, this piece needs trimmed, because if we go to fold it, it'll hit the spoiler. So you have to trim this little area, and it's just something you have to do on so many different die casts where you have a large decal that's covering up this rear quarter panel. So you have to trim that, and you want it to not to miss the spoiler, but also to lay as close as it can to it. So haven't done the other one. It's a little bit easier, so I kind of know how much to cut and how much not to cut. But I don't typically cut into the fuel door. I want to leave that fuel door there. That's usually pretty safe. So I'll put this here again. How this will line up, just like that. So it'll lay down and miss the spoiler, but be tucked up against it, kind of like that. Okay. So I'm going to get this in the water now. These things like to curl. So try to get that to lay flat as possible, as much as possible. I like to be liberal with the water. I like to make sure that the decal is soaking in there real nicely. While that sits for a minute, let me show you what else I'm working on. I've already got the Best Buy car done. That is, there's one up for sale. This was the one I'm going to keep for the as the custom request. This one, I'll be honest with you, depending upon how this one turns out, this one's pretty sharp. But if I make this one better than that one, then the better of the two go to the custom requester. I like to make sure they get the best, and usually they're pretty much the same. There might be some minor things that set one a little bit better than another, but this car turned out really nice, and so I'm probably going to go ahead and ship these two to the requester, and then this will be the eBay car. I'm also working on the 17 Jana King, Matt Kenseth 2002, and this one is just about done. One little interesting piece, see these side decals for the rear tail light? They're huge. I don't understand it. The design of that 2002 Taurus is pretty dumb. But this one on this side actually goes into the stinking fuel door. So I'm probably going to have to try to trim that back a little bit, because I just think it looks dumb with it covering up part of the fuel door. So I got to paint the spoiler black, and these side skirts get painted black, as well as the front lower valence there. So I got a few things to do there, but I'm putting some coats of sealer on it now. Once I have all the decals on, and this will be the second one I make. This is the Furniture Row number 78 that I've had sitting here for weeks. The burgundy metallic has been painted. I've got 1 or 2 coats of sealer on it, and then I'm going to use this Go Mango and paint that on, and I'll show you do that. That'll be another video, but that's what I'm working on, those two. So, all right, let's get this back in here, and we'll angle it down a little bit, and we'll start working on this. All right, so let's put this roof decal in place. You get up here. All right. See that trim looks pretty good. Where's my brush? Huh. Got tucked in there somehow. So yeah, you've probably seen, these are my two favorite tools. These tweezers and this little tester's brush that I don't use for paint. I use for working on these cars and doing that. You can see. Just kind of push to get rid of all the water underneath and on top. So nothing's in there underneath, so it can lay flat and tight. Once I get most of it out, sometimes I'll take this paper towel and I'll push down on it, and it'll suck up and pick up any that's in there. And once I get all of it out, I use my fingers. Again, wash my hands with soap and water before you mess with any of this stuff. Okay, I can see it's not 100% straight. I'm just kind of sliding it up a little bit. Yeah, that's good. To push it around these roof lines. Make sure that decal pushes down in there. Okay, looks pretty good. All right, let's put this decal on the hood. Got a big glob of water there. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show you the putting on of this front piece. But like my Best Buy video, patience, taking your time, not being in a rush, and but being persistent. Being persistent. I may have said this in my other video, one of my other videos before, but I had a pastor friend years ago who said something that really stuck with me. He said, Satan tries to rush us into, bad decisions, bad choices, or just rush us, get our anxiety levels really high. God doesn't work like that. God guides us. So when you feel rushed into a decision, it usually doesn't turn out very well. The It's usually not God working us into making a hasty decision. Think it through. Seek His wisdom, and you make good choices. Alright, let's put this on back here. Now again, I'm trying to get it centered. It's going to overlap this piece over here a little bit. I'm trying to get that logo centered using these little roof lines, these rear windshield lines. It makes it helpful. But yeah, this one actually looks a little bit better than the other one I did. So one thing I like to do when you use your fingers, especially when there's a contour in the die-cast body, because my fingernails are relatively short, you press it in. It looks like it's more of a painted on look. See that? Press it in. Careful not to lift it. But it looks pretty good when you do it like that. Once you get it into place. So I got a little overlap on the rear windshield a little bit. Just a little tiny bit. It's not too much of a problem. I'll try to push it down in there a little bit so it hides it. Once I get the clear sealer on it, that'll cover up pretty nicely. Okay, so those are on, looking pretty good, come along pretty well. I'm going to put this side piece on next, and should kind of lift this out of here. Just lay it on here carefully. Yeah, tuck that in there. And we'll keep working this. Hope you guys are doing well. If you're embarking on your die-cast custom making yourself, I'll cheer you on. You know, like I said, take your time. Don't be in a rush. Plan things out. Have a steady hand. And hope you do well. I'll keep working this, and this will be a really nice car. I'll be listing this in a few days once I get it all done. So, God bless you guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Take care.